So the Trump administration is coming after Julian Assange, and shockingly, everybody is seemingly getting this right and now defending him. And when I say everybody, I do mean everybody. The only exceptions are the hardcore MAGA people who have zero principles, and they will defend Daddy Trump no matter what. And these are the same people who loved it when Trump said, "I love WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks is tremendous." He said that on the campaign trail when they were helping him because of the nature of their leaks. Now that the Trump administration did a 180 and they're going after him, all of a sudden, they're like, yeah, fuck him. So zero principles, but the rank partisanship of that far-right base was always going to override any sort of principles, and that's crystal clear. But take a look at this from the New York Times. Julian Assange's indictment aims at the heart of the First Amendment. The Trump administration seeks to use the Espionage Act to redefine what journalists can and cannot publish. On Thursday, the Justice Department charged Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, with multiple counts of violating the 1917 Espionage Act for his role in publishing tens of thousands of classified military and diplomatic documents in 2010. The indictment supersedes an indictment unsealed in April on narrow grounds of attempting to help an Army private surreptitiously break into a government computer to steal classified and sensitive documents. The new indictment goes much further. It is a marked escalation in the effort to prosecute Mr. Assange, one that could have a chilling effect on American journalism as it has been practiced for generations. It is aimed straight at the heart of the First Amendment. The new charges focus on receiving and publishing classified material from a government source. That is something journalists do all the time. They did it with the Pentagon Papers and in countless other cases where the public benefited from learning what was going on behind closed doors, even though the sources may have acted illegally. This is what the First Amendment is designed to protect: the ability of publishers to provide the public with the truth. President Trump has waged a relentless campaign against the news media, going so far as to repeatedly label it the enemy of the people. But with this indictment, his administration moved well beyond dangerous insults to strike at the very foundation of the free press in the United States. The Espionage Act has been used against those who disclose classified information only rarely for good reason. It has never been used against a journalist. So, just to give you a sense of how everybody had the light bulb moment on this, even Rachel Maddow came out and she despises Julian Assange. She genuinely thinks he's like a covert Russian agent or something. But even she came out and was like, can't have it. Can't have it for one very simple reason. This is pure, sheer, unadulterated, rank authoritarianism. That's what this is. When the government mucks up bogus charges to go after a journalist for doing journalism, that's what we call the total death of freedom. That's what we call an actual war on the free press and on the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. So, listen, this segment that I'm doing right now, I mean, I am begging, I am pleading the, edgy right-wing commentators who have defined themselves on this issue of free speech. I'm begging these people, please, do the right thing. Have some principles. Actually put aside your partisan nonsense and take a stand here, because we can use a unified voice and it is crucially important that we present a unified front on this issue to really expose how terrible and extreme this really is. Because for all the whining and the yelping and the bitching and the moaning about, free speech is under attack on college campuses. We hate social justice warriors. They're censorious. Well, okay. I can sympathize with you on principle, because I don't think any, speaker should be deplatformed or shamed out of giving their take, even if it's an odious take. But here we have an actual threat to the First Amendment. So this isn't just the principle of freedom of speech and a free press. This is the legality of it. This is like the government actually persecuting people for political speech. Now, understand what Julian Assange exposed. Again, like him or hate him, irrelevant, totally irrelevant. The thing that they're going after him for, it's related to the Chelsea Manning leaks. Now, what happened? Chelsea Manning gave the information to Julian Assange that our military, during the Iraq War, and this was all on video, this is all a matter of record at this point because of the bravery of Chelsea Manning and Julian Assange for releasing it, our military murdered innocent people. I think it was in a helicopter. And they had no reason to believe that these people were, terrorists or insurgents or whatever word they were using. And what happened was they killed these innocent people, come to find out they were journalists. Then they circled around and killed the first responders. And the entire time, they were laughing about it. And they were being willy-nilly about it, like it was nothing. And so Chelsea Manning has this thing called a conscience, where she looked at that and said, oh, well, I was told that we were fighting for freedom, and we were fighting for liberty and justice, and that we're the world police, and we're only trying to do what's right by everybody around the world. And now here I see our military murdering innocent people and laughing about it, and then escaping all consequences. So she said, the American people have to know this. In the same way that back when the Pentagon Papers situation was unfolding, we learned that, our military was using Agent Orange chemical weapons, napalm, on innocent villages. And we were killing innocent people, and again, totally callous about it. Don't care at all. No accountability. No justice. So at the time when the Pentagon Papers were leaked, everybody said, oh my God, this is treasonous. During a time of war, you're taking the side of the enemy by exposing the wrongdoings of our government. And they would call them a traitor, Daniel Ellsberg. And only in time did people realize, oh, whoa, what the fuck were we thinking? It's such a no-brainer now that there's now movies celebrating the reaction of the press to run with that story, run with that information. But Julian Assange did the exact same thing, the functional equivalent of releasing the Pentagon Papers of the modern era. The idea that we have on video the U.S. military murdering civilians, laughing about it, and killing the first responders who were obviously there for medical reasons, and they see no problem with it, and there was no accountability and no justice. Of course we should learn that. If you care about a free press, they get to report the truth and expose the powerful, and then we get to judge, hey, look at what our government is doing with our money and in our name. And so the idea is, if the press is adversarial and doing their job, then we learn about what the government is doing, and we can then take action to try to fix our government and change our system. This is what's called a democracy. And a democracy is only possible when you have a free flow of information, when you have an educated population. When you basically try to ban the press from doing what their job is, there is no more freedom. There is no more First Amendment. So understand, it's not just WikiLeaks, too, that ran with this. They were the people who originally came out with it. But all the fucking newspapers ran with it, too. So by this logic and setting this precedent, the government can just say, whenever there's a story that leaks that they don't like, they could just go after the reporters, go after the journalists, and say, hey, you broke the law. We think, you releasing this information, which is top secret, national security sensitive information, well, we think you're working with the enemy. We think, we're going to prosecute you under the Espionage Act because you're aiding and abetting the enemy or whatever goofy nonsense they come up with to protect their own ass. And it's just crystal clear that what's happening here is rank authoritarianism where the government is covering their own ass. So they can get away with doing whatever the fuck they want to do, and there's nobody to hold them to account. So understand that that's what's happening here. We've seen threats to the First Amendment before. Obama had a war on whistleblowers. We still see it all around the country. There's over a dozen states, maybe over 20 states, that have anti-BDS laws on the books where people can't get a government contract if they personally want to boycott Israel. So that is 100% a violation of the First Amendment, and I think 3 courts now have ruled as such. So we've seen crackdowns before, but this is just an unprecedented giant step in a sheer authoritarian direction. And just understand, this is so extreme. The Obama administration, who again had a war on whistleblowers, but the Obama administration, they looked at this and they were like, well, we simply cannot go after Julian Assange, because if we go after Julian Assange, then yes, that is the end of a free press in America. That's the end of a free press. There is no more free press because everybody printed that information. It was newsworthy information. And what you're doing is you're criminalizing journalism. This is where we are. Now, Donald Trump is a soulless, vapid, vacuous man-child with no principles. And when he was on the campaign trail and he, spoke, I love WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks is tremendous. That was when they were releasing information that was exposing Hillary Clinton. But when the information exposes the deep state, when the information exposes our illegal, hideous, grotesque wars, then all of a sudden he capitulates and he says, yeah, whatever. Go after him in the most vicious, extreme way possible and end freedom of the press. And remember, Donald Trump is a guy who in many of his speeches now, we've covered it on the show. He did it at his CPAC speech and he's done it at rallies. He talks about, we believe in freedom of speech. That's what we believe in. It's tremendous. It's unbelievable, I have to tell you. You love to see it, folks. You love to see free speech. They just set up a website where if you think there's censorship on social media, you can go there and tell the story. They just set that up. They're so concerned about freedom and they're so concerned about the First Amendment and free speech, they want to closely monitor what's happening on social media. But understand, guys, it was always just a partisan narrative. They never really meant it in terms of principles. They just meant it in terms of, can I cry and play the victim and cherry pick cases of the right being censored or deplatformed? Great. I'm only going to talk about those instances, and I'm not going to talk about, overt, clear, blatant, extreme, next level threats to the First Amendment that I'm perpetuating. So he's doing it. Remember, this is a guy who said repeatedly, we got to open up the libel laws to hold the media accountable. That's what Donald Trump said. Donald Trump sued Bill Maher over a joke. He sued The Onion over a satire article that was written about him. This guy does not believe in free speech or free press at all. And now he's made that abundantly clear. So if you believe in free speech, you cannot back Donald Trump. You cannot back this administration. Because this is the most extreme crackdown on free speech and a free press in modern history. Full stop. That's what it is. There's no weaseling your way out of that. There's no tiptoeing around it. There's no pretending that isn't the case. This would be the death of the First Amendment. The government gets to say, I don't like that story you ran, Mr. Journalist, so I'm now going to accuse you of being a fucking spy and aiding the enemy because you exposed our wrongdoing. It's obvious that's how this is going to be used from now on. There's no question about it. It's obvious. Oh, you released something we didn't want you to release because it shows how immoral, amoral, grotesque we are in the U.S. government. You just exposed us. I'm going to say that that's threatens national security based on no evidence I can present to you. Hey, it threatens national security, and so we're going to go after you and treat you like the enemy. The only silver lining is everybody on the left, everybody in the center, honest libertarians, everybody gets it. There's only like maybe a 20 to 25% block of the country that's just the hardcore Trump fanatics. The far-right rank partisans. They're the only people in the country that don't get it. And they really showed their true colors here.